And it's my great, great honor to introduce our honoree this year, Liev Schreiber. Now, I want to talk about the Ukraine situation first so we don't run out of time and don't touch on that. And that is, as I was reading to prepare for this, obviously it's one side or the other, your mother or your father, one side is Ukrainian, someone's Ukrainian.
Yeah, my maternal grandparents.
Your grandparents.
My reel was very Ukraine heavy.
Yeah, yeah. These actors in their fucking politics, I mean, Jesus.
I've done a lot of stuff in show business, you know, and I got all this Ukraine stuff. I was like, there could have been a few good scenes in there for all that you know. Anyway, I just want, for the folks who don't know, that I actually have a pretty long
career.
CV, you know. I mean,
yeah. Okay, so back to Ukraine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Ukraine. Yeah, your career. Ukraine.
Yeah, me. Yeah, what about it?
Well, meaning, what was the genesis of that? How did you get into what you're doing now?
To be honest with you, people called me because I made a film about Ukraine in 2005, and some people in Hollywood knew that I had Ukrainian great-grandparents and grandparents, and so they said, "What do we do?" Because they were upset about what was happening, and I was embarrassed that I didn't know what they should do, so. I was sitting with my kids on the couch after 8 years of Ray Donovan, kind of looking at my kids and thinking, I've been working a lot, you know, and I haven't spent a lot of time with these guys. Sasha's here today, right over there. And we were watching this war unfold, and I thought, how can I talk? What do I know about Ukraine? What can I tell my kids? And I didn't have anything. And at the time, I also felt like there was this thing happening in the world of politics that was so profoundly polarizing. And I just had this thing in the back of my throat about values and what matters to me and how could I express that to my kids. I don't think my work maybe has expressed that, or maybe I was worried that my work hadn't expressed that since I'd been off doing Ray Donovan for 8 years. And so at that point, I got a call from somebody who said, do you want to be a sort of man on the street interviewing Ukrainians and asking and getting their stories out there? And at that time, I told my friend that that's one of the stupidest ideas that I'd ever heard in my life.
Man on the street.
Yeah, man on the street. And I'm not on this, you know, like a very safe internet thing where I interview them while they're in the front lines of a war, and I'm in my living room. And I said, I was upset because I really didn't know what to do. And I said, look, if you want to help, give money. Just give them some money. And I hung up, and a guy named Jason Cohn called me back, who's a former director of Doctors Without Borders. And he said, how serious are you about giving money? And my first thought was, oh shit, they got me, and I'm in. And I said, well, I am serious. And I thought about Sasha, and I thought about Kai, and I thought about, here's a chance for me to do something that might have some meaning to my kids, that might reflect something of what I believe are American values and principles. And I jumped in, and honestly, those guys, I really, I raise the money. I do things like this, and hopefully if people care enough, they'll, you know, go to www.bluecheck.in and they'll help out because it's getting intense. But those guys had a really wonderful, wonderful idea, which is, and I don't want to waste too much time on it, I'll just get out of the way. In 2016, there was a Global Aid Summit. The average budget for the global aid situation is in the vicinity of $40 to $50 billion a year. What we found out in our research, not me, these guys who've been doing this for 30 years, is that the most effective providers of aid, humanitarian aid, typically in these situations are local, because of the intelligence, because of the language, because of all of that stuff. They're the best suited to respond quickly to any situation, whether it's Ukraine, Sudan, whatever we're talking about. The local responders are always the most effective. So in 2016, the organizers of this public funding budget, which is all these big countries who contribute this money, which is around $40 billion a year, realized that they had to change the fact that they weren't getting enough money to local organizations, local NGOs. It's very hard because often, they need to be vetted. There's all sorts of reasons. There's liabilities. So the money typically goes to these larger NGOs who then distribute that money. And because they're so big, they have overhead. So a dollar quickly becomes 20 cents. What Blue Check does is, with the participation of these pro bono legal services and Integrity Risk International, they vet all of these small NGOs, get them set up, and we can get the money to them within 2 weeks. And because we have no overhead, because I've got a day job, we get 90 cents on the dollar, if not better. So the thing for us is not just doing what we're doing in Ukraine, but the thing for us is changing the aid system, the way it works. In 2016, the organizers pledged 25% of the budget should go to local groups, right? So you give some huge portion to Red Cross, UNICEF, whatever, these big international NGOs, and then a tiny, they've only been able to do 2% since 2016. They committed to 25, and they've only been able to do 2. There's a lot of good reasons for that. I'm not trying to demonize anybody, but part of what we're trying to do is to push for that local aid, local NGOs, and that's what Blue Check is.
What was, you describe quickly if you can, because I mean, there's a lot I read about your, what?
I think my mic went. Are you saying that was too long of an explanation?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
It was perfect. It was the right amount of time.
Thank you.
Your childhood, your mom was, from what I was reading, a rather colorful woman. But you can talk about that to the extent you want to. But what I'm wondering is, what was media like in your childhood? What was TV, movies, theater, music? What were you drawn to when you were a kid in terms of media and entertainment?
You're right. My mom was a colorful person. But there were not any color films allowed. There was nothing. Well, I don't know if that was intentional, but we would go to a theater called 80 St. Mark's on 8th Street, and those were the movies that I got to see and my mom wanted to see for some reason. And I realized later that they were great movies, but at the time, Alexander Nevsky, and for a 7-year-old, like the 3-hour Alexander Nevsky with all of the Russian guys running across the ice, and the Prokofiev score.
Showa. Let's watch Showa.
Showa was
for 9 hours. Yeah.
That's what she thought I would like. By the way, I did get the Marx Brothers. I did get Charlie Chaplin. I did get some good stuff, but for a long time, it was a lot, and I got a lot of Shakespeare. I did. I got a lot of Shakespeare. I forgot about that, because we had talked about this, and I never mentioned how much those movies influenced me, like seeing Olivier's Hamlet. Because he was actually really good in the film.
Did that spark something in you?
I did. I liked it. I think him and Basil Rathbone, and I also like Zorro. But those were like the things that I thought were cool. And then my grandfather would take me to Ringling Brothers, and he would buy me a sword. And that's what I really wanted to do all day long, was do pretend sword fights.
This is in New York, not San Francisco.
No, I
left
left San Francisco when I was a baby.
You were a baby.
Growing up in New York. So that was like that. There wasn't a ton of culture. My mom was very well read and very educated, and my family generally. But I was brought up on that stuff. So I think that I had a head start on old things as a kid.
But when I was a kid, I'm older than you. When I was a kid, there wasn't anything else. It was WPIX, WOR, and WNEW, and you'd watch the $1 Million Movie back when they had booth announcers who'd announce tomorrow's movie.
That's right.
They had a guy named Ted Molly. It took me 6 years to find out this goddamn guy's name on YouTube. I'm surfing YouTube, and he would come on at the end of the show and say, "Tune in tomorrow when Barbara Stanwyck tells Gary Cooper where he can go in Ball of Fire."
Yeah.
It was like all these little snippets.
What was the music from the $1 Million Movie?
Gone with the Wind.
Bum, 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 bum.
That's the theme from Gone with the Wind. Is
You are a lot older than me. I mean,
yeah.
But I do remember that.
Yeah. Alexander Graham Bell was my teacher. I was studying. Now, but when do you see? Because for me, I remember that the notion of becoming an actor, or at least of all in films or TV, and being in something as high exposure was just ludicrous to me. I thought, oh, those people come from another planet, you know. And when did that occur to you that you wanted to start acting? How old were you?
I'm not kidding. I think it was the circus and the plastic swords. I'm not kidding. I think that was the beginning of some like weird and you know, my mom was a cab driver, and I got left home a lot. And so, and I didn't go to school, I think, until I was 6 or 7. And I think there was a lot of daydreaming. And so I think that's really where it started. But it started, the idea of being in a film or on a television show, no way. But the first time I think I saw live theater, I can't remember. There was one play. My mom took me to a Shaw play at some rinky-dink theater in the Lower East Side. The one that I really remember the first time was Shakespeare in the Park. And I think that potential and the magic, it was magic. You know, the Delacorte was magic, especially back in those days. You know, I remember I saw Raul Julia doing Othello, and you know how there's a crane in the back by that park, and they light the castle, and because it works for the play. And I remember he does that scene where he kills Desdemona and he's choking her out on the bed. And one of these things that happen is right at the moment after she dies, you see that crane take off in the background and pass, and it was like, whoa. Then of course, cut to, 20 years later, I'm doing the Scottish play in the park, and I get that drunk raccoon who walks in. I'm in the middle of the scene where I'm looking at my hands, because we both played the same part. I was his Banquo in the Scottish play, and then I got to do it, but I'm doing If It Were Done When 'Tis Done, and 'Twere Well, which is an incredible speech. And there's a spotlight on me, and Moises has done this very sexy lighting, and I'm like, I got a tuxedo outfit with blood on the front, and it's going well. It's going really well.
You had a tuxedo?
Yeah, but without the jacket, so you got the white shirt for the blood, and it was great.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
I had a filthy animal skin.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You were like the male Barbarella. But you were very good. I rode his back.
I'm the best male Barbarella you've ever seen, aren't I? But go ahead. So you're on the tux, the blood.
It's just the raccoon. It's talking about being upstaged by a raccoon. Because I thought the crane, and then I'm doing If It Were Done When 'Tis Done, is I Want to Kill the King. This incredible speech about regicide, and this raccoon who really looks drunk, which is mean to say because he had probably eaten some rat poison or something. But he walks right out in front of me, and he stops right in front of me, and he just stands there and he looks at me like this. And the entire audience, 1,500 people, can see because he's on the periphery of my spotlight.
Dying.
Yeah.
Dying in front of you.
Yeah. While I'm doing the speech.
Right.
And he doesn't wait till the end. About 3/4 of the way through, he just walks off like nothing happened. And the whole place goes up in laughter.
Now, when you do a show, let's take that show.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done a lot of intense projects in film and television, and Ray Donovan, we're going to get to that. But let's pick a Scottish play. You're at the Public. What is we'll hop back and forth between the theater and film. I mean, I knew an actor who was a very famous actor, and he was not a disciplined actor. He was a hard-charging, partying, kind of a crazy actor. This is years ago, and he said to me that when it came time to film, he would go to a spa in the desert somewhere in Arizona or New Mexico, and park himself there and just read books and sleep and exercise and not smoke and not drink and eat well and try to get himself ready to go in front of the camera, and he would prepare for like a month. Do you have similar types in your own way of preparations when you do a film or you do a play? When you go to the theater for the half hour, when you go to present yourself on stage, do you have like a routine you do to get your mind right?
Yeah. You mean for the show or before the show?
Before the show.
Before the show. Well, you know how those Shakespeares are. You really you've got to spend time with the text. I went for graduate school at the Yale School of Drama, and at that time, it was Lloyd Richards last year. And Lloyd Richards said something extraordinary to my class as we all walked in thinking like we were the most special people on the face of the earth because it was so hard to get into this school. There's 14 of us. And the first thing that Lloyd Richards says to the assembled group, and it's not just actors, but it's actors, playwrights, all of the designers, all of the theater tech people and the producers. And he says, the first thing I want to say is to remind you all that actors are the instruments of playwrights. And I think that's something that I may have veered off a couple of times, but for the most part, that's been my directive. That it's like, find the thing that's worth expressing in the piece and do it. Find why this is an important piece and find what your role is in it. And so for me, a lot of times, particularly when we would do a play or a Shakespeare play, unlike other actors, I watch everything. I watch everything. There's a great resource, which is the Lincoln Center Library. If you ever want to see past theater productions, you can go in there, you can watch them. I want to see how everybody did it, because I don't believe that I'm going to do it like anybody else. There's no way I can do it like anybody else. And I want to be informed by that continuum of information, and even more importantly, the continuum of that play. What is that play speaking to, and why are we doing that play now, and what does it mean? And I think that's the thing that makes me excited about being an actor, is writing, is great writing.
Yeah. It's very hard to, you know, people say to me, what do you like to do in the theater? And the things I've chosen to do, I've always said, I want there to be the reality. I want the reality to be that it's like a black diamond ski slope. I know I'm going to fall during the performance. I'm never going to go all the way down the hill and make it, ever. And I was doing Equus out here, and Schaffer came and was with us in the rehearsal in the city, and then came out to the tech, and the company was there, and Schaffer was there, who was just lovely. And I said, whoever wrote this play is a sadist. I said, because I said the black diamond ski thing. I said, and I know I'm going to fall every night. I never got it right once. I transposed a line or whatever. The final Sunday performance, I was like, please, God, let me just get this right, one performance. And I said, it's like I'm going to wipe out on the hill. And Schaffer looked at me and said, well, I do hope you find it thrilling on the way down, my boy, nonetheless. And I was like, okay, okay. But I mean, I'm always looking for something that I'm never going to get it. It'll be tough every night to do. Scottish play, Equus, Miller, whatever I was doing, Williams, you know. But for me, the most powerful, because you do it again and again and again, you know, obviously, when movies that I've ever been in come on a television, let's say I'm in a kitchen, there's a movie, and I'll look at the screen and I'll go, I remember that day we shot that scene. That's when I had that accident on the Ventura Freeway on my way to work. I don't remember the movie at all. I remember making the movie and the people around you, blah, 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 blah. But when you do a play, I ruin every play I've ever done for anybody in the audience when I go with them. And I'll sit there and we'll watch a play I've done. I'll go, I didn't do it that way. I did this whole thing with my hand, and you know, you're educating them on how it should be done. Yeah. But for me, it's this challenge. What would you say? Not one example. I'm sure there are many, but give us one example among many of something that was the most challenging for you, acting-wise.
You know what I've learned not to do is try to replace somebody. A lot of, you know, I always pick plays, and then sometimes I'll pick actors. Like I picked that Macbeth because of you, and I picked Les Liaisons Dangereuses. Did someone tell you to turn your phone off before you come to concert? I mean, this guy.
Honey, is that you?
Yeah, okay. I did Les Liaisons Dangereuses, a production on Broadway with, oh my God, I'm showing my age right now. That I picked the play because I wanted to work with.
Davis.
No, it wasn't Betty Davis. What? What? Janet.
McTeer.
Thank you, McTeer. I just, as an actress that I just always really admired and wanted to work with, and I said, oh, I'll just do this because I want to work with her. And that's kind of a great part. And Malkovich was good. But here's the thing I want to say about that, is like, I went through a period of my career where, like, at least in the theater, I got some pretty fantastic reviews, you know, to the point where I was like into reading them, you know? And I feel like I learned the most the times that I tanked. I learned the most the times that I took a beating. And I don't just mean, well, because for me, I think my issue has always been my own ego, you know, with everything, with my acting, with my life, everything. So every time I took a real spanking in that regard, I got better. But I also think as an actor, every time that the illusion about what I thought I was doing was ruptured in some fantastic way, and I was exposed, I got so much better. And in the ones where I was good and everybody thought I was good, I don't know what was going on. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of, you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's kind of,
There's some magic to
you
it,
pick
I
a
think.
thing, you pick a thing
Yeah.
to focus on. Like with every character, it's like, I mean, aside from the play's the thing, right? And then something happens where in the process where you'll develop a relationship with another actor, something happens, you get some rhythm, that rhythm becomes the play. Something you do with your finger becomes the play. You know, for me, the Glengarry Glen Ross was just my finger. It was like something was happening. And it had nothing to do with me. Something took over. Like a dialect or something gets you in. And I'm ashamed that how simple what we do is in some levels. But the ones that I was good in, I always felt like, I don't know, well, okay, good, great. And it was a good feeling, but I didn't grow as much as the times when people were like, boy, did he stink up the room.
And when you're with people, working with them, like for me, I'll never forget, I did 3 plays. And there were 2 leading ladies who, my affection for them and my investment in them carried me through the play. When I did Streetcar, when I did Prelude to a Kiss, Amy Madigan, Mary Louise Parker, and I went on stage, and I fell in love with Mary Louise every single night I went on stage. And when we were done, and we'd end the show, and she'd go home, I'd be like standing there in the hallway going, bye. Have a good evening, bye. And I was so in love with her. And then with Amy Madigan, I said to Ed Harris, I go, I'm sorry, but I'm in love with your wife. You know, I'm so in love with Amy. You go out there and everything, something takes over. And then the same thing happens with a guy. I go to Entertaining Mr. Sloan with Chris Carmack, and I'm like, I love you, Chris. I love you, I really love you. You know, and it's like this, something takes over, like a magical thing. When the people are, name a couple people who you just loved working with and you really were
I
excited
thought the
about.
best part of that production of the Scottish play was Macbeth's relationship to Banquo. Personally, I know Lady Macbeth was, you know, but I thought our relationship was the most compelling. But that's because that's all my character cares about, is his relationship to him. But I think probably the best experience I ever had, and I know exactly what Alec is talking about, when you work with actors who share a feeling about what you're doing, and there's a lack of artifice, there's a lack of ego, and there's a friendliness, and there's a desire to catch the other person and lift them up all of the time. That the cast of Spotlight was extraordinary in that regard. Every one of those actors is a star in their own right, and every one of those actors turned their performance to the film, to Tom, and to the idea of journalists and what their lives were like. And there were a lot of moments where people could showboat. You know, there's a lot of moments where you go, oh, I need a big speech here, I want a crying scene, I want to stand out. And that group of actors, who all happen to be friends as well, was kind of making room for each other in a wonderful way that really gave you a sense of what that press room looked like and how it worked. I also felt like the actors on Glengarry Glen Ross, there was a buoyancy. It was like a game of volleyball, and you could feel it with those guys, with Alan, and all. It was just an incredible group of actors that just keeping the ball.
Who else was in that with you?
I knew you were going to do that. Fred.
That wasn't Wopat, he was in another.
Tom was in it.
I told Wopat, I said I couldn't believe how great he was in that time. He was
Yeah,
great.
He was so good.
He was
He
great.
was so good. Gordon, Jeffrey, from the show, the comedy TV show, you know, the wonderful Jeffrey Help. Anybody? This isn't being filmed, is it?
It's being filmed with 9 different cameras. It'll come to us. We'll look it up.
I can't really.
Yeah, I figure people all the
Look it
time.
up. Yeah, it was a good show.
Yeah, no, I love it. But listen, Glenn Gary is like that Swiss watch, you know. I did the movie and it was like, my God, you know, the people, I mean, to be there with Arkin and all those guys that I admired and that I loved. Al wasn't in that scene that I did, but God, it was so intimidating, you know, because when you do something with people that you love and admire your whole life, and then you have to go out there and be the negative value in the scene, as I call it, it's hard, you know, it's really hard.
You undersell yourself.
No, I'm just saying it was weird. It was weird for me.
I thought you Alec would do this thing when we were in the play together where I've just never heard anybody who was so quick with an impression or it's like incredible how fast he can get somebody. And I was thinking like, as the time we spent together, this is an actor who really is also an audience. Like you can tell so much of what he does is from really, really watching, spending a lifetime of very, very careful observance. And you don't get a lot of that because most people are hams. You know, most people like, I can't wait to get up there and do it, so much that they didn't watch what just happened. But you got the feeling with Alec that he'd spent a lot of time watching, which I was surprised because he didn't seem like a lonely guy, and that seemed like a kind of lonely guy thing. But
I am lonely.
is that your?
No, but the first big movie I did, then had a good part in, a big part was Hunt for Red October, and Connery walks in, and he'd been sick, and they said, Sean Connery's going to play the lead. He's going to play the Russian submarine commander, and I was like, oh my God, Jesus, I'm so lucky. Then they said, he's not coming, he's sick, and they got another actor to come. And I should have known something about this studio, how they operate, because they said to the other actor, then Sean's agent calls and says, he's feeling better, he can go to work now. He had like a throat issue, they thought he might have had cancer. So they call the other actor and they go, what were those dates you said you were doing the opera in Milan and you weren't available those days? Oh, we're so sorry. And we're gonna we have to shoot those dates. The dates that you're not available, we have to shoot those dates. Okay, click, and they hang up. And Sean walks in, he does his wardrobe thing, he does his hair and makeup. The first day we shoot, he walks in and I go, I'm so fucked.
Why?
Well, no one's even they're never gonna cut to me. It's gonna be Sean, Alec, Sean, Alec, quick pop on Alec, time permitting, you know, and he was so, they'd say action, and they'd be like, Alec, action, and I'm like, I'm too busy staring at Sean, because he's so fucking amazing. He was like the biggest movie star I ever worked with in my life, but kind to me.
Really?
All the greatest ones were very, very kind, of that generation, older people. Now, you do a TV series, and for my money, I mean, you've always been athletic and powerful and graceful, and your voice is so singular, your speech, and but when I remember doing the play with you, 1998, that was around that period of time when you were like the Prince of New York. Everybody was like in love with you and thought you were so great on the stage and your talent and everything. Everybody was just, pissing their pants about you.
Did you hear that, honey?
Yeah. Oh God! And
I
your
told
son.
her because I told her
mean,
that it was a
it's
time.
amazing.
I told her there was a time when I was like somebody.
He was.
and
He
that
was
she
it.
should
He was
know.
it. He
Thanks.
was it.
Yeah.
And and then you do Ray Donovan, and it gets dark. And I never viewed you as a dark person. You were very positive, humanistic, funny, smart, talent, all these things. But one thing I wouldn't say was, there wasn't you weren't Michael Madsen, you know what I mean? Where there's a dark element to everything. How did they get you to do that show? And what was it like to live in that situation, that environment for 7 years?
I met Ann Bitterman, who created that show, and I realized within a half hour, it was just, I wanted a job because our kids were school age, and I said to Nay, well, where do you want to live, New York or LA? And she said, well, I just bought Sally Field's house in LA, and I was like, let's go to LA. And I call my agents and I say, can you help me get a job that can keep us here, like something consistent? And he said, put me on the TV route. And the first person I met was Ann Bitterman, and I was like, whoa, this woman's extraordinary, incredibly intelligent. And she gave me the script, and and told me that it was a kind of an amalgam of men in her life, her brother, her boyfriend, her father. And I just thought it was one of the most deeply psychological and feminine characters I'd ever read. And not feminine characters, but he was a figment of a woman's imagination in a really extraordinary way. And I just thought it was really interesting to do that, because ironically it kind of comes out as this uber masculine thing. It's very hard to explain, and I'm not doing a very good job of it right now, but if you know Anne, it's something about like a mother's relationship to her children. Ray's relationship to his family is a woman's relationship to her child. Ray's relationship to his wife, it's very difficult to explain, but I think it's a fantasy of Anne's in some ways, of this very wounded and very vulnerable character who's coming from this very traumatic experience of having been sexually abused when he was young. And I just thought it was great writing, and all I really had to do was do less. Like, you know, I think towards the end I said like 6 words a week, you know. For me, I was also, the great thing about, I think we're similar in this way. I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, but it was the opportunity to try these things that I had watched as a kid. I never dreamed I would play a lead. I was always a character actor, supporting actor. And to play and so how does that work? And how do you do that? And that was the biggest thing for me in playing Ray was, oh, I'm the star of this show. How do you do that? And I think that I became deeply reliant on my fellow castmates, and I got really involved in wanting to cast those parts with people that I trusted and felt good around. And then I felt like it was that thing you talked about where I was literally falling in love with all of them. The guys who played my brothers, my wife, and that was my job, was to love those people and support those people in this incredibly hostile environment. And what was smart about what Anne did, it was a kind of a reversal, is Dorchester is nothing compared to Hollywood. So first you had to get Dorchester, then transplant all these people here. And I really love that idea of what would it be like for the average blue-collar person if this world got thrust on them, which is something I think you and I know a little bit about. So I really love that idea.
How did Voight come into the picture?
Well, I've never told this story, and I probably shouldn't, but we wanted Walken. And I knew Walken a little bit from the public in New York, and he was like, you know, he's like, I can never remember the lines, which I think what he says when he doesn't want to do anything. And then John came up, and I was like, that's a great idea, because we did Manchurian Candidate together. And John, and I never said a word to him, starts playing Mickey, and I'm seeing a little bit of Christopher Walken in there. And I don't know where it came from, but it was brilliant. There was this, you know, there was a scene early on, I think it was the first episode. And John, you know, John is, he's alive.
He's
alive. And he's a really, really interesting actor. But he's not out there, you know, he's not, well, I'm just dug myself a grave. There's a scene, anyways, we're shooting the first episode, and there's a scene where John is watching a woman breastfeed her baby on a plane. And John makes the choice, well, it was sort of set up, but he did it, he winked at her while she's breastfeeding her baby. And I just thought, we're all either out of a job or this is gonna be very good. That's my John story, I'm sorry.
I can't wait to try that, wink at a woman who's breastfeeding. But
that was Anne. Anne wrote that stuff. Anne wrote stuff like that. Anne once came to me with a line, and she said, can I do this? And I was like, what? And I can't say, I keep doing this. It was a thing. Sorry.
We'll cut it out of the film.
Okay,
don't
cut
worry.
it out. Yeah, it's kind of purple. It was a thing where John becomes afraid that that his grandson might be gay because he likes red sneakers. And Anne writes the line from a Dorchester grandfather, "It's all right, you know, everybody sucks a little dick. Just don't let them, because that's how you get sick."
John says this to Anne?
No.
it's in the show.
Anne reads this line to me and says, "Is this okay? Can I do this?" And I was like, "Absolutely you can do this. We're playing guys from Dorchester." And one of the things that was interesting about our characters was leaning into those things about their sexism, about their homophobia, about their racism, and how they worked their way through it. Like when Ray finds out he's got a black half-brother. It was like, that was the most interesting stuff about these characters. And I don't know, I felt that felt to me like I was working with somebody who was really brilliant. Like it was really pushing the envelope in a very R-rated way, but around things that are uncomfortable for people and uncomfortable for a reason. Like real things that are uncomfortable.
I did this movie Outside Providence, and Michael Carenti, who used to live out here, wrote a scene where all of a sudden we find out in this clique of guys who plays cards that George Wendt is gay. And someone said, you know, he's gay to me. They tell my character he's gay. I go, get the fuck out of here. He's gay. What do you mean? I look at him, I go, well, you gay? Like in gay? Or you're gay? And I go like this, I go, or you gay like in gay? With my hand. And George Wendt looks at me and goes, taps his forearm. We fell down crying. But listen, I've done a lot of things where you say and did things in the 90s or late 80s, 90s, and so on, you could never do anymore. But
yeah, that's right. And we're supposed to do that stuff, I think. I believe we're supposed to do that stuff. I believe we're supposed to work it out. Like that's a freedom that we're allowed to have.
But what I loved is that all of the brothers, this is my opinion, this is my take. I just want to say, just clap quickly. How many of you have seen Ray Donovan, have watched Ray Donovan? Okay, so if you haven't watched Ray Donovan, it's in that league with The Sopranos. You got to binge the whole goddamn thing. You got to binge it. You got to binge it. And you watch this thing, and you watch the evolution of this thing. And I said to him once, I talked to him months ago or a couple of years ago, and I said, Liev, I've never seen anybody get punched in the face more times on a TV show. You're beating the shit out of people, or they're beating the shit out of you, like every fucking episode. But the John Voight, because what happens is that all the sons are a little smarter than him in a way. They're a little more sensible than him.
Yeah.
They're a little more current than him. And he's the most messed up of all of them. The father is the most messed up. And then the guy, what's his name? I'm always forgetting, who played him as a young man. What's that actor's name?
Oh, Bill.
Bill.
Yeah,
He was great.
I can't do last
Yeah,
names.
yeah, I hear.
Yeah, Bill.
We'll put it on our website.
And John's character, at the start of the show, he's 20 years in Walpole. So he's been kind of removed from the world for 20 years and is kind of getting out and is, you know.
That's an appetite.
Right.
Yeah. You are going to go make another movie soon, and we shouldn't talk about that, or we can?
We can talk about it.
You're going to go work with who?
I'd like to explain the mustache.
Right.
Because I know all these people are thinking, well, he likes to look like that.
Yeah.
No, I play a Hasidic Jew, and I have a beard, but the mustache is. I've learned this lesson. This is why you have these talks. Is if you're gonna do a show like this, grow the mustache and the soul patch, because that they come off when you talk. So they can make a fake beard that's good, but they can't do this.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So that's why I look like this. I'm into Darren Aronofsky's movie called Caught Stealing. Darren is a very good friend who I've been angry at for years for not putting me in a movie.
Right.
I thought I would have been great in Black Swan, but he finally cast me as a Hasidic assassin. Not assassin, like, you know, like a hitman. Sorry,
A hitman.
Like a heavy, yeah, heavy.
Before we get to the one of our purposes here, you know, you seem to me like someone who you've done a lot of films and have had a great career in the theater, but I'm 1,000% convinced, especially when you talk about your family, because I'm the same way. I mean, I've been offered jobs where I'm like, I'm never doing that. The next, I'm hosting a game show. You know what I mean? To stay home with my family. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna do. I don't care anymore what I do as long as I can stay home. And you seem like, I'm sure you've turned down a lot of stuff, a lot, without naming names and embarrassing people who took the part. I mean, for me, I have had a little bit of that, especially when I was younger. But for you, I'm sure you just turned down a lot of stuff. Correct?
Less probably than you.
Well. My agent calls me one day, he goes, what are you doing right now? This is back in the 90s. He goes, what are you doing right now? I said, I'm having a cup of coffee. He goes, I'm gonna send a script over to your house. And I want you to read that script right now. Right now. They're coming right now with the script to your house, now. Okay? I go, great. Bing bong, delivery guy shows up, brings me the script. I open it up, very famous director, very, big project, big budget thing. He goes, and he says to me before I hang up, he goes, this is the most amount of money you've ever been offered to star in a film. And I'm like, well, I'm right here. And I sit down and I read the script, and when I'm done reading the script, I call him up and I go, I don't know, man. I mean, they can get anybody to play this part. It's all like effects and military hardware and shit and bombs and shit. And I don't know. And he goes, do me a favor. He goes, what are you doing right now? I go, nothing, really. I'm home with my wife for the weekend. He goes, would you drive and meet me at my office? And I want you to read the script one more time with a special light I have. And that light projects onto the page of the script the amount of money they're gonna pay you for the fucking movie, you moron. What the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, oh, I never got it right. I never got the movie business right, you know what I mean? But, go
I
ahead,
got
sorry.
one of those right now. I got Jason and I were walking up here, and he's talking to you. What do you think of that script? I'm not going to name any names. I said, I think it's fun. I haven't made any money in a while, so I was like, well, this might be a lucrative job. And he's like, yeah. On top of that, I think you might not even actually see my face, because I think I might play like a lizard or something. And I was like, great. And then I think actually the lizard speaks a different language, so you might actually not even hear my voice, which this could be a really ideal situation.
Yeah.
I'm in. Yeah.
You know you're getting older in this business. You know that things have changed. You know that things have changed. When I literally walk around sometimes, and I'll be on the streets of New York, and there's a little kid, and the parents will recognize me. I look at the kid, and I'm like, I'm boss baby. I'm boss baby. You understand?
Yeah.
I am boss baby. And the kids are like,
Yeah.
ew, like, get away.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, come back. We have a purpose here. I could go on. We have a little more time, or are we hard out of here at 7? Are we hard out? We got a few more minutes? I only would do this quickly because I'm not a big fan of questions from the audience. Get over it, okay? But I'm not a big fan of questions from the audience. But in the front row here, in the front couple rows, I can't see back there. Do we have any questions? We might give them 2 or 3 questions. Anybody? Anybody want to ask a question? Oh, look at that.
Hey, over there.
Over there in the corner. Who's over there? Wait, stand up, please. Yeah, no, you. Yeah. Stand up.
He's so gruff,
Yeah.
Stop.
I love your work. Thank you for all that you have brought entertainment into our lives. But
Thank you.
can you talk about The Perfect Couple?
You streaming whore, you.
Yeah. I see why you don't like
Perfect
the
Couple.
questions. I get. No, I was really nervous about The Perfect Couple. I was really nervous about it because I played such a cad. But thank you. It was one of those things, I think, where the format, the cast, and the director, just the timing worked perfectly. And there was an appetite for it. I feel like there wasn't a lot going on other than it. And so it hit, and it hit hard. I give most of the credit to Suzanne Biers, the very, very dark and the very, very funny Danish director, and Nicole Kidman, who has kind of made that format and that style so successful. And she's got a lot more moves. I mean, she's got a lot more moves as an actor than I think anybody really knew, certainly than I knew. And I just had a ton of fun. It was another one of those situations where you really like the people that you're working with and you're having fun and you're improvising a ton. And Suzanne really loved the improv, and it created this kind of funny, odd style between the actors that I think A, felt realistic, but also had humor in it and sort of undercutting that kind of Nantucket entitled, beautiful, perfect people thing. I thought it was really, really fun to be a part of.
Should I watch it?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's
Always
actually
looking for
really,
something
it's
to
good.
watch,
I think
you
it's
know?
good.
A couple more, anybody? Over here, right here, stand up, please.
Sure. Hi, I love your work.
Thank you.
And I was just wondering, who's the actor that you've worked with that you've learned the most from, and what was that?
I was going to ask you the same question.
bet you would.
Or somebody, but somebody you worked with. Like, I remember, I did a movie with Tony Hopkins.
Yeah.
And it was like I cried every day. I was so happy every day. Every day I'd watch him, and just, it was really, I don't want to go on a diatribe about that, but I could. But who's one, obviously there's many, that you worked with? Meryl, John, who did you work with you thought, wow, I really picked up a couple things here? I'll tell you what I learned from Meryl, but you
Go.
go first. No, you go first.
Oh, me first?
Pick somebody.
I'm never, it's funny that when I'm acting with people, I'm not seeing them like that. I'm not seeing them like, once it started, when they're acting and I'm watching them, I'm learning. But when I'm with them, it's not. It's something else is happening in the relationship that's primary. And so I'd say the person that probably influenced me the most was Alan Arkin, because we did a film together in Poland. And I was heartbroken because my relationship back home was falling apart while I was in Poland. And Alan would talk to me. And as an older man, Alan was probably my age now, and I was probably 26, 27. And how he talked to me about pain without getting too involved in it. And how he talked to me about everything. He just had you knew him a little bit, right? He was nuts, but he had a perspective, talented, like incredibly talented. And I think that there was something about, I would be like, I remember, maybe this will give you a sense of it. I was crying, I was miserable because my girlfriend, a terrible thing had happened, blah, blah, blah. And Alan's sitting there. Well, you're young. And that was really his approach. It's like life is this series of things that feel earth-shattering and impossible. But then the next minute happens, the next second happens. And there's something about that that's really valuable, was very valuable to me as a human being now, but was also valuable to me in retrospect as an actor. That it was like, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it. Do the work. Mean what you say. Say what you mean. Commit to the things that you love. And then stand by them. Back them up with your work. If you screw up, you screwed up. So what? It's already past. It's already history. But 9 out of 10 times when you screwed up was the moment that the audience jumped in. You know what I mean? Like 9 out of 10 times when something happens that you weren't in control of or that you didn't predict is the moment when the person out there goes, yeah, that's me. That's real. There's something kinetic in that. And I think that Alan was one of the first people to get me on that train as an actor, not be so hard on myself and not be so hard on what was happening.
Well, when I worked with Marilyn, it's complicated. What I learned from her watching her. No. When I watched her and I was working with her, I was like, she really, really had this way of moving through the day where she wasn't going to let anything get to her or unnerve her or distract her.
Right.
Even if there was some drama with some people on the set and there was some something that could distract you. I learned about a vital thing about acting from her, which I'd heard from other people as well, a similar assertion about that. Different people who said, don't ever leave the set, don't go to your trailer, stay on the set the whole day, stay connected to what's going on the set's the place to be. And because earlier in my career, I'd be on the phone, I'd be like, I want the yellow tile in the bathroom, yes. I'm on a mountaintop with a cell phone that costs like $100 a minute back in the 90s, and I'm talking to my decorator. Like, a lot of shit distracting me from doing my fucking job. But the person that taught me about the business was Mike Nichols. And he said to me once, and it's all kind of, vague, and he said, or elliptical. He said to me, he wanted me to do a movie with him. And I'd done Working Girl, and he wanted me to do another movie with him, and I said, I can't. I said, I'm breaking up with my girlfriend right now. And I said, I'm fucking miserable. I'm really miserable. I can't. He goes, well, we're not doing the movie until May. This is in January. He goes, well, we're not doing the movie until May. Watch this. And I go, I can't tell you how I'm going to feel. I don't really know. He goes, what problems could you have that couldn't possibly be solved by May? And that's the movie business. I'm calling you to do a movie. You tell everybody to go fuck themselves, and you come make a movie with me. We're going to have a good time. And well, there's a lot of girlfriends out there for you, was the attitude. One more. Anybody here? Far left? Here? Yes? Stand up, please.
Well, this is kind of not a business question in your business, but I happened to open the paper yesterday, and there was a quote from you in the paper, and I was coming today. So I just wanted to ask about it. It said, I remember finding Harold and Maude, hard to say it, strangely erotic. I've always had an octogenarian fetish. I just want to know. I just
Own it.
I wanted to know if that was true, because it gives all of us women here a lot of hope.
Well, thank you. No, it was a big influence to me, Harold and Maude, actually. It really was. And I was turned on by that relationship. And I've always, is that so terrible?
Oh, no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
But I've also, it's like another thing about, like, you can see how my brain works. Like, I tell stories that I shouldn't tell, and then I have to tell the story. And like, I didn't think about the thing that I can't say. And that's, I think it's one of the things, if I can say, that makes me interesting as an actor, is that I tumble into things. And I fall a lot. I fall forward into things. And when you do that, it's dangerous. It's like a high wire act, but it's compelling. And for me, I like things like it's a really uncomfortable and dangerous conversation to get into what Anne was trying to do with that thing about not only gay people, but her grandson, and sexuality, and all these things. But for some reason, when those subjects come up and it gets uncomfortable or awkward, I get excited. Like my wife will tell you that one of the things that she really hates about me the most, and also loves about me, is that I can't not say what I'm thinking. And those are terrible dinner party guests, but they're really generally, good useful as actors. And that Harold and Maude was something where I felt like, this is so screwed up, but it's really captured my imagination. And I don't know why, because like I'm finding myself fantasizing about that stuff the kids fantasizing about, and it's compelling to me, and it's maybe because I'm not supposed to, maybe because I'm not allowed to, maybe because it's taboo. And those are, of course, the things that we want to share with each other. Ironically, I believe that, because I think, and Alec, I don't, tell me if you feel the same, but that's the fun of the theater. That's why the theater is as great as film and television has been to both of us. To be on a stage, you get that laugh in the theater that doesn't exist in real life. That's the laugh where the person in row 6 is telling the person in row 5 that they understand what's happening. It's just saying, I'm in on this, because you have 800 people in the dark communing with each other, because they're sharing something, an idea that a playwright's put on stage. And that's what we're doing, is allowing you to access that thing. And when you access that thing, that's when they, and it's a big statement, but that's when, to me, theater becomes like church, when communities feel closer to each other and connected to each other. And the deeper the thing is, like my octogenarian fetish, The darker the thing is, the closer we feel, I think. Because, well, if he's not hiding that from me, he's not going to hide anything from me, you know? And that's why I guess I was always been drawn to like villains too, you know? If he can show that, if he can identify with that, there's nothing in me that's going to put him off. There's nothing about me as a person that could possibly be as terrible as that person. And I think that, by the way, I think that's sort of the core thing of Ray Donovan. Like, he feels such tremendous shame over the whole drive of that character to me was that he feels such tremendous shame over having loved that priest. That was the first person that told him that he loved him. And he loved him, you know, and like Anne brilliantly wrote it, that he shoots him the minute the guy says, I love you. Because he was in love with them. And he was a kid who was in love. And that's sort of like these you know, priests who abuse children, they groom them, and part of that process is making them think that they're in love, and they are, in many cases. That was, so that thing about Harold and Maude like caught me, and I was like, oh, yeah. I want to talk about that. I want to do that. I want to, you know, why do I like that? I don't know. Let's talk about it. What?
I'm trying to think of 80-year-old women I wanted to get closer to. I don't know. But
How did you respond to Harold and Maude?
I love Harold and Maude, and I love Bud Cort, and I loved. I also loved Where's Papa? One of my favorites. All those kooky comedies from back then. What's the one that Arkin did? The Jules Pfeiffer.
Rush.
No, the other one. Little Murders.
Uh-huh.
I used to love that one.
But you didn't want them to be together, Bud Cort and Jessica. What was her name? Ruth Gordon.
Yeah.
You didn't want them to work it out?
I really didn't give a shit whether they worked it out.
That's the difference between us.
It's none of my business.
No, that's
Understand?
actually the difference between us.
It's none of my business. But
He's like watching Bud Cort to think, how can I do that later? How can I do how could I play Ruth? Actually, I know this for a fact about Alec. He was probably watching Ruth Gordon thinking, how could I do that? Because he's really into those gender reversal.
I mean, I like women all shapes and sizes and ages. I really don't care. Well, let me just say real quickly that we're going to give our special presentation here in a second. But can we have, where is Carol Merrill? Carol, could you bring out our special box, Carol? Does anybody have the special box? Do we have it? Someone has the box? Oh, we don't have it in the box?
Oh, it took it out.
Oh, why don't you bring it out? Oh, you have it out of the box. Well, how unexpected is that? Let's have that. Let me have this here. We named this award. See? I did that on purpose, see? I'm going to put this here for a second. We made this award, and we named it after Dick Cavett. We call it the Artistic Champions Award, because we wanted it not just to be about acting, stage, film, theater. We wanted it to be about the person's whole experience as a public figure. You know, we named it after Dick because we wanted it to be somebody that wasn't a movie star or something. We'd probably catch a lot of shit if we picked a movie star. And all the other ones we didn't pick would be like, oh. So we picked Dick because we thought Dick was somebody who, in his work as a talk show host for many years and doing the best talk show, the greatest talk show, he brought so many interesting people and colorful people in the arts to the TV screen and brought them into your home. We just worship Dick. And and so I want to, this award is not, is an award we give to people who we think their whole package, they're acting. And I want to say that on behalf of the Hamptons International Film Festival, for the work this gentleman has done in film and television and theater, and his work in terms of advocacy, his advocacy that he's been really put his shoulder into, I want to present this award to one of the greatest actors, to probably one of the 5 greatest actors of his generation, Liev Schreiber. My pleasure. My pleasure.
I have nothing to say. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.